Okay, this is chapter 8, and in this chapter we will discuss the presentation of your report. Okay, how to present your research finding. Okay, so we will discuss about the content of a research article, and we will also discuss when you submit your research paper, then or your thesis, then what types of common comments you can get from reviewers. Okay, and we will also discuss the contents of a university dissertation, thesis, and the formatting attributes of the thesis and the contents of a research project report. And we will discuss the referencing style, okay, different referencing style, and then we will discuss how to make oral or poster presentation of your research work. Okay, and then finally we will discuss the scientific misconducts, and you will understand different types of scientific misconduct. So we know that when you have done your analysis and you have completed your research, then you need to report your research finding in a documented form. Okay, so writing of the research report is the last step in a research study. Now we have to be very careful when presenting our finding. Uh, Language clarity is important. Okay, there should not be any ambiguity in your reports. Okay, so your language should be clear, and there should be a logical presentation of facts. And you have to make tables and graph or charts or diagrams that should be easily understood. Okay, and then order is also important. Okay, so there should be orderly arrangement of reports. Okay, then the size of your report, so should not be too lengthy or too short to either lose interest or skip some relevant information. So it should be a reasonable size, okay, depending upon your analysis and the length of your study report. Okay, so what happened? Sometimes the research is of high quality, but due to poor reporting, such research does not get popularity. So we have to be careful also about the reporting of the findings. Okay, maybe you have worked very hard and you spend a lot of time on collection of data and then analysis of data and getting results, and too much time was spent. But finally, your report is not to that level. Okay, you just you didn't follow a proper referencing. There are so many mistakes in the reports, or there are so many, things that are irrelevant in your reports, or you have included many things that are, you know, important, but they are not interest to the uh, other scholars. So you have to be very careful when you are making your final report. So it should be, you know, written in a way that should attract the readers, and that should be, a complete document. There should not be anything missing, or there should not be any ambiguity in your report. Now these are the contents of research article. Okay, we know that there would be a title of the research article. So title basically describe the subject matter of your article. For example, effects of FDI on economic growth, empirical evidence from Pakistan. So it is very clear that in this study we want to analyze the effect of foreign direct investment on economic growth, and this would be empirical study, and this study is on this country, Pakistan. So from title, many things are clear, and this is also clear that uh, economic growth is the dependent variable, and foreign direct investment is independent variable. Okay, and it is recommended that title be specific enough to describe the paper's content, but not so technical. Okay, so we have to make our title very clear. Then there would be authors. Okay, of the research article, researcher who did the major research work and wrote the paper would be the first author. So there could be more than one author in a research paper. So sometimes they are joint research paper with two authors, three authors, four authors. Okay, so first author is basically the author who did the major research work. Okay, and then we have second author and third author, and then we have abstract. Okay, this is basically the summary of your research article, or if you have a thesis, then it will again there would be abstract of the thesis. So this will give a reader a preview of the article or your thesis. Okay, so if someone is not interested to read the entire article, your thesis, they will just read the abstract. Okay, and then they will get some information. And abstract basically attract the readers. So if your abstract is written very well written, then it will attract the reader to read the whole document. And then when they read the whole document, they can cite it for their own research work, and this will increase the citation of your work. Okay, so abstract should be a little less technical, otherwise it may lose the potential audience from reading the paper, okay, or your dissertation. So what we have to include in abstract? So in abstract we have to summarize the purpose, the methods that you have used in your study, the results of your study, and a part of your conclusion and the implications of the study. Okay. For a research paper, the abstract length is mainly from 100 to 250 words. Okay, so and it is in one paragraph if it is a research paper. But if it is a thesis, then the length is more, and then there could be more than one paragraph for the abstract of the thesis. Okay. So we avoid use of abbreviations or citations in the abstract. Okay, so try to avoid the use of abbreviations and citations. Then for the research article, you can see that there are keywords. Okay, and author, they provide keywords for the paper, and this will help to know the study area and the specific concept that are focused in the paper. So we have, standardized keywords designed in different discipline. For economics, we have JEL classification, Journal of Economic Literature classification. So these keywords and their classification codes are used in American Economic Association's published research material. So you can see that there are some paper, they have keywords, and with the keywords, they also write the JEL classification. So these are the classification codes which are introduced by American Economic Associations. Then this is very important, introduction part of your research article. So introduction provides the background of the study and a brief overview of the issue's current state, and it summarizes the relevant literature so that the reader should understand how the researcher formed the research questions. So some core studies are summarized in introduction in on which your study is based, and it also explains why study is essential and relevant. So significance of the study is explained in the introduction part, and your introduction will end with the explanation of the organization of the paper, that how your paper is organized. Some paper are organized in 5 sections, some are organized in 6 sections. So in one paragraph, you will write the organization of your research paper. Then we have literature review section of research article. So this section provides review of theoretical and empirical literature, and based on this review, the author form their hypothesis and they build the methodological framework. And we have a methodological framework section of the paper, and this section describes the methodology, whether it will be descriptive approach, econometric approach, or any other mixed approach. And if there is a regression model, then models variable are clearly defined in this section, and then model is written in parametric form, and then the parameters expected sign are discussed. Okay, and then we also discuss the channel through which each independent variable affects dependent variable. But you have to be very careful that in methodological framework section we don't discuss the result of the study. Okay. Then we state the data sources for our study. So this section explains the sources from where the data of the variables are collected, and we have to give complete information about the sources of data, so that if someone is interested to cross check replicate the results, they can and get the data and replicate the result and confirm your result. And also if we are using some proxy variable, so we have to state how these proxy variables are calculated. Okay. And we have results and discussion section. So in this section we provide the results of our model, and then we compare our result with the results of some previous studies. And if there is a contradiction in finding, contradiction related to theory, maybe theory is saying some different uh, result and we are getting some different results, we have to explain that contradiction. And also maybe our results are contradictory to the findings of other researchers, so we have to explain. Then two modes of presentation, table and graph. So for some variable, if you are using table, then for the same data you should not draw the graph. Either you have to use a table or you have to draw a graph. Okay, so because we can get information from tables and same information we can get from graph. So what is suitable, you have to use that. It is not that you are also drawing graph and then for the same data you are making tables, so it will be duplication. Then we have conclusion and implications section. So in this section we conclude the study, but we don't repeat all results. We just focus on the main result and give our conclusion. And then we also discuss the policy implications of the study, to provide guideline to the policymakers. And then sometimes we see that in some article, they are making some recommendations which they have not tested. So you have to be very careful. You have to make recommendation or policy, discuss the policy implication only that are tested in your research study. So those that are not tested, you cannot make any policy recommendation. Then finally, you should also, set direction for further research. Okay. So, so in this section, we discuss the limitations of our study, and then we set the direction for further research. So this section will help other researcher how to carry out the current study and in which direction they have to carry out and what techniques they have to use and what other variables they have to use that are suggested by you. And we have to write the full references of the citations that you made in the text. So in the full reference, we write the author's name, okay, and the title of the study and the journal or book where the cited work are published. Okay, and to avoid plagiarism, we need to include all information sources that in others people's intellectual property or have their copyright. Okay, now there are several ways to organize this session. So we have different referencing style. So but you have to follow one referencing style. It is not that for one article you are following one referencing style and then for second article you are following another referencing style. So if you have decided to follow suppose APA, then you have to keep that style for all references. Okay, so then we have footnotes or endnotes. Now footnotes are given in the text, while endnotes are given at the end of the text. Okay, so it's up to you or what the what are the requirement of the journal, whether you have to use footnote or endnote. So footnote basically include some clarification of concept or some additional information. Same as with the endnotes. Okay. For example, there are some technical term, and then you may think that its definition varies from country to country. Then you can use the footnote or endnote to explain that concept. For example, labor force. So what is the age limit for the labor force? So for in your if your country the age limit is different from some other countries age limit, so then you can state in the footnote or endnote that this is the age limit for the labor force. And then for example NPL, non-performing loan, so then you have to state in the footnote or endnote what is the definition of non-performing loan in your country. But the other basic concept are basic definitions which are common and everybody understand such, because your paper is for scholars and such paper is not a book, so you don't need to explain each and every concept or theory. So you have to avoid explanation of basic concept. So for example, if you say this is according to the law of demand, now you don't need to explain in the footnote or endnote what is law of demand. Okay, everybody knows law of demand. Then for the thesis or research article, we also write acknowledgement. So for research paper, you know, acknowledgement is not mandatory. Okay, it's up to you whether you want to acknowledge or not. Uh, but in thesis, it is essential that you have to make a section for acknowledgement. Okay, so in acknowledgement, we thanks those who either help financially or made other significant contribution, commenting on your manuscript, or they help you to provide and get the data or some other techniques to learn. Okay, we also acknowledge the supervisor. Okay, in the acknowledgement section, we acknowledge the institution, we acknowledge our friends, we have family members for their help during your study of MPhil or PhD thesis. Now, yes, in a research paper, acknowledgement is placed at the end of the report before the references section. But in thesis, it is placed in the beginning before the table of content. Then once you have written your paper, then so many times you have to edit, and then finally you have to proofread. Okay, so we have to write our research article in past tense. Okay, and we use present tense when you know we are discussing about the findings and results, and present tense is also appropriate when we are making timeless statement. Okay, so first draft is just a rough draft, and then you have to read it, make correction, get second draft, again read it, make correction, get third draft, fourth draft, fifth draft. So and then you will see that there is improvement in your research article. So when we publish a research article, we get so many drafts. Okay, and then finally we proofread. Now for proofreading, you can use Grammarly, or you can get the help of mm, some professionals who used to proofread the documents. Okay, and you can also yourself proofread your document. Okay, so for the write-up, so write-up should be at a level that is appropriate for the audience. Okay, and there should be use of short sentences, and then if you have a long sentence, then you have to rewrite it into sentences. Okay, and paper should be properly proofread. You have to check the grammar, you have to check spelling and punctuation errors. Okay, so we can also use spell check and grammar check. Computer software can help you, like Grammarly. Then we have thesis. So thesis is the document that describe the project work carried out as a part of partial fulfillment of a degree requirement, PhD degree or MPhil degree. So it is a document that a student can produce to prove that he or she can handle the research problem as an independent researcher. So when you complete your MPhil or your PhD, then uh, you will be confident enough that you can now conduct research independently. So you would become independent researcher. So master thesis is just one step below the MPhil thesis. I don't know whether you wrote your master thesis or not, but in some discipline, in some universities, we have to write master thesis. In foreign universities, it is must, but in Pakistan, it is optional. And so master thesis is just one step below MPhil thesis, which is one step below the PhD dissertation in terms of its originality and contribution. A too small thesis represents inadequacy of the work content. A too big thesis reflect the inability of the candidate to write a concise report. In the past, we had very big thesis, maybe in 2 volumes sometime, but now we consider concise report better than too lengthy, okay, because it will lose the interest of the readers. So sometimes thesis is used for a written report to get a master or MPhil degree, while the dissertation is the research outcome during a doctoral study. So for master or MPhil thesis, we may not expect research publication. Okay, if you have published, very good. But for master, we don't expect that there should be a research publication. But for PhD dissertation, it is expected that the researcher will generate at least one research paper that would be published in some good journal. Okay. So for master or MPhil or PhD thesis, standard format is 5 to 6 chapters, but you can use as many chapters as you wish. So this is content. Okay, there will be title, there would be approval page, acknowledgement, abstract, and then table of content. You will present the list of tables. So on one page, you will write the list of table and their page numbers and table title, okay, and list of figures, list of acronyms that are used in thesis. Then we have chapters. There will be introduction, literature review chapter, modeling framework, result and discussion chapter, and conclusion and implications, and then references. Then you will use, if you want to provide additional information, you can keep them in appendix. Okay, we discuss other content. Okay, so most of the contents are already discussed. Now, table of content for thesis. Okay, provide an overview of the structure, headings, subheadings, and respective page numbers of what is inside the thesis. Okay. Then we have appendix information that is of secondary importance to readers, and those items do not fit into the thesis main body, then we will place them in appendix. So in appendix, we normally include questionnaire, okay, some data set, or some mathematical proof, or supplementary results. Okay, so these are included in appendix. Then what would be the formatting attributes of good thesis? So you have to use good quality white unlined paper, okay, and each page of the thesis must be adequately margined. We normally write on one side the page, which is not both side printed, okay, and text of the thesis is double spaced, or if as guideline is given by the university or institution, we have footnotes and bibliographies, long quoted passages and items in list, tables, appendices, maybe single space or as recommended by the university. So thesis should be printed on one side of the paper or as recommended by the university. And for the font, so we have to use any legible font for the text body except script, uh, italic. These fonts should not be used. Okay, and whatever font is chosen, it should be used throughout the thesis. Don't change your font from chapter to chapter. Okay, same font for the entire thesis. Normally, we follow Arial, Times New Roman, these fonts. Okay, and font size is 12. So project reports. This is the content of project report: executive summary, introduction, research methodology, discussion of finding, conclusion with recommendation, and then references and appendix. Then what should be the referencing style? This is a very popular referencing style that we mostly follow. APA style, which is American Psychological Association style. Okay, and if you want to learn about this style, you have to visit this website. Okay, so this website will explain how to cite, how to cite in the text, and how to give a reference in the references section. Then we also have MLA, Modern Language Association of America. This is another referencing style. You can learn this referencing style if you visit this website, mla.org. We have Chicago referencing style. It is also referred as Thorabian, Chicago Thorabian. Okay, these are less used. Okay, in economics we mostly use APA style. Okay, you can visit this website to learn about this referencing style. Then we have Vancouver referencing style. Okay, we have Harvard referencing style. If you want to know about this, you have to visit this website. Then once you have written your report, then you have to make presentation. So there could be oral presentation or poster presentation. For your term paper, you have to make oral presentation. Okay. So we know that the research findings can orally be presented in a seminar, a conference, or defense of a thesis, okay, in the institution. So for this, you have PowerPoint slides, and according to the time limit, this is very important. There's sometime, you make many slides, but you don't have time to make presentation of all those slides, and then during presentation, you will get confused. Okay, so if you have, suppose normally in the conferences, we have 15 minutes to make your presentation of your paper. So for 15 minutes, if you have made 50 slides, then how can you make presentation of 50 slides in 15 minutes? So then what happened? They just discuss introduction and literature review, and then time is up. So then sometime, it will be difficult to make presentation of, results and conclusion. So then quickly you pass on to different slides, and that will not be a good presentation. So you have to check the time availability, and according to the time limit, you have to make your PowerPoint slides. And it would be good if you make a rehearsal, okay, of your presentation. And font size is also you have to be careful about the font size. If it is a very small font size, maybe it will not be visible on multimedia, even on multimedia. So then it will be difficult to explain your results. And also you have there would be question answer session after your presentation, and you should be ready to answer the question. Then sometime we have poster presentation. Okay, you don't need to make oral presentation. And for poster presentation, we take a vital surface of 3 to 6 feet, and then we paste our slides on that surface. And then it is available in some room of the conference, and people just visit to look at the posters, and then you are also available there to answer the questions. Then finally, scientific misconduct. So scientific misconduct is plagiarism or fabrication in reporting research result. And plagiarism means using ideas, writings, or drawings of other as your own. Now, if the researcher is using his or her own published material in some other research publication of its own, it will be considered as self-plagiarism. So you have to avoid plagiarism, and you have to avoid self-plagiarism in your research paper, in your thesis, okay, in your project reports, okay, all these. Then the question is how to check the plagiarism. So we have a software which is known as Turnitin. Uh, Turnitin can check the similarities, okay? And it will give you a similarity index. Normally, the similarity index is less than 20%, then it's okay. But if it is more than 20%, then it is alarming, okay? And you have to look at and revise your draft, okay? And there are some other, software that are available online that can be used to check plagiarism, but mostly we use Turnitin software, and it is a licensed software. Then we have fabrication. It's a technical term which is called cooking the data and getting desired results. Okay, this is also a scientific misconduct, that you try to get your desired result by some manipulation. And then falsification occasionally occurs when researcher reports something that is not the case. Okay, false results reporting. Okay, or it can also occur with cited literature, where the researcher reports something which is with a cited work that is actually not true. So you have not read that paper, and then you just writing literature review, or you are you are writing your literature review by looking to the literature review of some other paper, and you have not read the actual paper. So this is also falsification. Okay. And then we have misleading authorship, is also falsification. Maybe someone did nothing for your research work, but then finally you included his name in your research paper. So this is also a scientific misconduct. These are some guidelines for ethical principles. Always remain honest in all research communications. You have to avoid careless errors and negligence. Always be open to critique and in the adoption of new ideas and comments. You should know and obey institutional and government policies and relevant laws. Okay, and you have to maintain confidentiality whenever it is necessary, because if you got the personal data through your questionnaire, and then it is your responsibility to keep them confidential. And finally, there should be objectivity in research. So good research is objective and comes up with some concrete finding. Personal opinions or feelings about the topic should not affect your report results. Okay, so the researcher needs to be unbiased in collecting data, estimating results, and reporting final results. And some researchers also discuss the limitation of their research very frankly. Okay, so you have to discuss your limitations very frankly without hiding any fact. Okay, so this will help other researcher when they carry out their research in the same field. And it is also important that the result of the study should be replicable. This means the other researcher, if they take the same data, get the same result because you have given the sources of data. So if the other researchers are not getting the same result with the same data which you have cited, it means something is wrong with the result. Okay, so this you have to take care. So I have